night's gonna last. You got it all on tap, I'm loving your vibe, always have your back. We like all the same tracks, listen all night in the sheets all black. Said I'm falling fast, don't remember life before you, that's facts. I feel good, you look great, I like you, I can't wait. A first time, a first date, you're so fine, I'm so late. You sip wine, I drink straight, don't waste time to my place. I feel my heart erase, so catch me if I fall.
Hi everyone. Hi, thanks for jumping on the live. I'll introduce myself. I'll jump straight into it. I'm Nick from Theorycraft Marketing. We are a specialized digital marketing agency that specializes and work with developers and studios and publishers around the world. So I'm very excited to present to you a presentation that we've built to give you a bit more insight into what you can do to create a marketing plan that will attract investors or will impress publishers to be, or just to help you sort of plan your marketing if you're wanting to do that in-house as well. So I will quickly share an introduction to the company and myself, and then I'll dive right in. So I've just added my all my details here, just in case you wanted to contact me after the or send me an email or organize something to have a chat about anything in particular. So this will be at the end as well. So so as I say, we are Theorycraft Marketing. We are a specialized digital advertising agency. So we work directly with studios, indie developers, as well as publishers and investment companies and VCs. And we work as an extension to their marketing team. So we step in when there's not necessarily the firepower or the hands on deck that's needed for a specific marketing beat. We have a creative studio that's in-house, so we create ad assets, trailers, social content, anything that's needed as well. And as an agency, we have a long-standing partnership and relationships with gaming publications like Future, which controls sort of Games Radar and PC Gamer. We have sort of with Coinzilla and Ziff Davis International, for example. So we run campaigns all around the world for any sort of digital marketing campaigns. We are spread across, so I'm coming from London, and we're spread across Hamburg. We've actually moved to Bangalore now, and also a satellite office in Singapore. So we cover sort of every region when it comes to delivering successful marketing campaigns. Just a few clients, just to highlight. As I said, we work with all kinds of companies, whether it's sort of smaller indie devs to larger publishers or investment companies on their portfolio. So we are pretty well spread across different size companies and different needs when it comes to marketing and budget sizes. It's just a few examples of some creative that we've done. I'll be uploading this presentation onto our website shortly after this live, so you can get hold of all the information on this deck as well afterwards. So don't don't panic in case I go over anything that's that we can just skip right through. So yeah, just a quick overview of what we're going to be going through. We want to take you through kind of some examples, some tools to add to your sort of tool belt, and recommendations on how to define your media plan, how to create sort of audience segments, how to look at defining your game in terms of a marketing perspective, and how to measure that and how to track that, and how to basically impress future investors, possibly in terms of showing you that you know what you're talking about in terms of marketing budget. So first, I want to go into understanding your game and your audience, but we'll start with USPs. So many of you may know the definition of this, but it's kind of a characteristic that sets your game apart from others within the market. So the benefits of figuring this out early on in the day, if you haven't already, it will set you apart from your competition in an increasingly crowded market. So it's important to have similar games that you think would share an audience with, as well as establishing a difference to entice new players. You also it will help you define and find your target audience. I'll go into more detail about how exactly, what tools and how to find your target audience and audience segments shortly. But finding your USP will really help you then find your audience, what to target them with, how to message them, and get a picture of sort of who will enjoy your game. Your USP will also obviously help with your marketing strategy. There's no doubt about that. Just to make sure that you speak to the right people in the right places and telling them the right things. So that's kind of the building blocks of your marketing plan, will be to outline your USPs, outline what you're best at, and then sort of double down in case that's something that that you see your audience is resonating with, which also leads us on to design decisions. So even if you need to make any changes within your game or double down, as I say, on specific USPs that you find, it's important to find out what you're winning at in your game to be able to then, create that standout product that appeals to your target audience. So going on to the competitor research, this is obviously massively important and pretty much leads the way of your marketing plan. Once you can get your competitor research done and your audience research done, then you can really explain what exactly you're doing and how you're approaching it to a potential investor, or or just to yourselves internally. So don't be afraid of taking certain aspects of what other people are doing by looking at competitor research and then adapt to your own product. So going to go into a few different ways that you can listen to competitors and look at other companies to see what they're doing and how you can utilize that. So we'll start with social media listening. There are tools like Hootsuite and Brandwatch, for example, that can monitor keywords and what competitors' fans are saying. So you can maybe plug in specific similar games, whether it's larger or smaller games that you think your audience will be following, and then just see what other people are saying about them online. So these tools will bring up sentiment, if there's positive or negative, and see what customers or users are happy with or not so happy with when it comes to their marketing efforts and their messaging online. Looking at a competitor analysis tool, so something like SimilarWeb that you can use for free, and SEMrush that you could probably get a free version, and I think you can get like a free trial as well, where you can plug in your competitor's website or another game's website, that'll monitor that website and the traffic coming in, and it gives you specific keywords, specific sort of search terms and things like that. So then you can take that out, apply to your marketing, apply to maybe YouTube campaigns, search campaigns, or Twitter keyword targeting, or even helps you design your messaging for your game going forward. So it gives you a little bit of a backing to show that you've done your research in terms of what you're targeting. And then you can look at email marketing analysis. So even something as simple as signing up to your competitor's email list, or another studio's or a fellow studio of their marketing list, see how often they're putting content out, see what they're talking about, and what you like and don't like about it. You can also get inspiration from that. As I say, you can use stuff like MailChimp or something like that to as well look at some data within your own marketing. Again, looking at another tool such as like Meltwater or Google News, you can gain a real deep understanding of the public relations monitoring. So actually looking at news, monitoring news stories and the specific tools to monitoring PR efforts of other companies and other game launches. So just type in specific games, specific companies, and then see how they're getting covered, see what coverage they're getting, what messaging they're putting forward, and then kind of might help you uncover new avenues and new publications to approach. So this is quite interesting as well, because if you're putting it into a pitch deck or pitching towards an investor, then you can propose specific publications that you want to approach. So that's really useful. As well, free tools like Google Trends, you can put in some topics or keywords into this tool, and then like a genre or a specific game, for example, and then see what's trending at a specific time in a specific country. So you can see if there's an upward trend towards a specific USP or feature within your game. Obviously, like free to play, for example, you'll see an upward trend in that sense. Then that maybe you could talk a little bit more about that. So just testing around with different keywords and different features of your game that into something like this, and it kind of shows you what you can focus on. So looking at audience targeting research now, you might have already a good idea into your target audience, which is fine, but you need to know exactly what's available to target online and how you can reach these people, because at the end of the day, you can have the best game, you can have an amazing game and an amazing product, but if people can't find you, if they don't know about you, then you're not going to get wish lists, you're not going to get sales or anything like that. So you need to understand how to get hold of these people and effectively put your game in front of them. So again, a few tools when it comes to looking at finding your audience and where they're going to be. So yeah, we would look at some analytics tools, obviously like Google Analytics or Adobe have their suite of tools as well. So then obviously if you're using your Steam page or your own landing page, you can collect data through that and then segment your data, so it'll show you what else people are into, so behavior on the site, for example, what users are engaging with on the site, using heat maps from like Hotjar or something like that as well is a really good way of seeing what people are engaging with, and as well like will help you understand what your messaging should be in the future as well. So that's definitely something that you can utilize. Social media insights, so Facebook Insights, Twitter Analytics are really good tools of getting a good idea in terms of people that follow you on your pages. It'll give you specific demographics, geolocations, other interests, and other content that they might engage with as well. So that'll help you identify different audience segments within your audience, which then again, as before, helps you convey your messaging correctly and helps you identify these people. And then as well, running even something like going route one and running a survey or a poll using like SurveyMonkey or Google Forms or something like that helps you get a valuable insight into your audience like before. So you can even offer like incentives for the form completion, build up an email list using sort of some paid campaigns, and just showing in your deck that there's a method of gathering data and understanding what your players are wanting and going from there. That's a really useful tool, definitely. So keyword research is a massive, it is a tool that will really help you elevate yourself from other companies. So using like Google Keyword Planner, which is obviously free to use through AdWords, to uncover specific search terms that your target audience is searching for. So you can put in website specific search terms that you know that are relevant to your game, and then it will show you other search terms, other keywords that people are searching that is relevant, that you also need to include in your either website or your content that you're putting out there. So yeah, that's a really good tool to use. And then once you have these keywords, or a list of keywords, for example, some might have been obvious, some not so much. You can kind of use Facebook audience targeting to plug in specific keywords and interests relating to your segments, and then see the audience sizes in particular geos, which I'll go on into more detail later on. But it's kind of worth mentioning here, and it won't give you exact sizes into audiences, but it will, it will give you a rough estimate as to where the Facebook audience is. And Facebook's obviously one of the biggest populations of audiences that you can reach. So it's going to give you a lot of data on where the audience is. And then finally on this, you can use external sources. So, I mean, we've partnered up with companies like Steam Data Suite, for example, that offer specific suite of tools like market data, tag analysis, and other games. You can assess what they're doing, but as well like Game Analytics that has a good suite of tools, called a Game Intel, for example, that has benchmarks and charts and market intelligence and things, as well as as well as reports and things like that from various publications. So there's a lot out there, and sometimes it's just a case of sort of steering you in the right direction. So once you've got your audience, once you've looked at what competitors are doing, so where do you start actually building a media plan and helping you describe exactly what you're going to do with your marketing efforts? So I've included some clickable elements in here. I won't go into them now because I'm aware of time and relatively limited in terms of what we want to cover. But we've included a template, an example of a media plan. We've included a template, an example of a pitch deck. So, I mean, it's not exact science. You can add and take away what you want, but it gives you a bit of an idea into what we've seen included and what investors kind of want to see, as well as an audience segmentation document. So something that we provide to our clients to show what exactly what audiences we're gonna hit and how we segment them, and what's possible on some different channels. So I'll obviously you can get hold of this deck after the presentation and have a little look around of these documents or these templates. Now, again, we have our audience segments. So we want to decide where we're going to run ads. That's the bread and butter of what our marketing plan is going to be. What channels are we going to choose, and where are we going to, what percentage of spend are we going to put behind each channel and things like that. This is, yeah, we use a lot of data, previous data, to be able to know what budget's going to go behind it. But as well, we want to kind of look at the strengths and weaknesses behind the key channels here. So we're going to go through quickly most of the key channels that we work with and a few pros and cons of them. There's quite a lot of information, so I won't go through everything, but as I say, there's a lot of information on purpose so that you can kind of read it afterwards as well. So in terms of these slides that have a little bit of information in terms of, a bit of market data on each channel, I kind of won't go into too much detail about this because we all know that Twitter's a big channel and it's used for gaming. This is just to kind of back up a little bit of argument in terms of some pros. But what I'll be mostly focusing on is these slides for the time being on the channels. So diving right in, I mean, Twitter, obviously, as I said before, you can target there's a pretty flexible targeting category for Twitter. So keyword targeting, follower lookalikes, conversation topics, and stuff like that. You can really get deep with the keyword research you've done before and test what kind of keywords and things you want to target there. You can also buy on cost per engagement and cost per click basis, which is good to scale up and down, and it means you can kind of be flexible with that, as well as a detailed analytics and insights. So like I said before, you can dig deep into the analytics and see other interests and audience insight into what those people are talking about and what they're looking into. A few cons, I mean, the relatively limited ad formats in terms of like other ad channels. So relatively limited placements and things like that, and creative types. And also the audience size for desktop. So if you're obviously releasing a PC game, you want to hit users at launch or wish list through desktop, because we see obviously like desktop conversion rates are much higher than mobile in this case. So if you're excluding mobile, you don't really get much reach from Twitter. So it's more of a kind of an awareness channel to encourage engagement and build communities. And as well, ad fatigue. This is going to be a bit of a theme throughout. A lot of the channels is a bit of ad fatigue. It's not enough to be kind of put you off marketing on these channels, but as well something to be aware of in terms of mixing up your creatives and not just sort of putting it out there and hoping for the best. Next, briefly on Meta. Obviously, it's a big gaming platform now, and it's promoting that and growing that even more. So with over 3 billion people, it's obviously a comprehensive channel for reach, and as like Twitter, it's got a comprehensive targeting with that as well. But I think what Meta really sort of excels at is the ability to create custom audiences, put pixel on your landing page, for example, and build audiences based on interactive on their engagement on your channel. So that's definitely something that's valuable. And then the creative flexibility as well. So there's a pretty wide range of creative formats you can use, different placements and formats and things like that. So it's quite flexible in that sense. And also with stories and things like that, even though it's a mobile channel, you've got sort of full screen attention in that sense. Again, ad fatigue, people grown a bit numb of ads over time. So you need to keep it engaged and make it blend into a normal timeline. As well with CPM sometimes gets a bit higher if your audience sizes are small, or if you're using retargeting and stuff like that. But not doesn't get to crazy costs. And then the ad approval process, especially in gaming, the automatic Facebook sort of ad approval process is quite stringent. So with fighting scenes, blood and gore, stuff like that, it's obviously flags that up with its automated system, so it can get in the way of campaign progress and limit exposure there. Reddit is obviously a channel that we're familiar with in terms of paid advertising, and that is growing in terms of the amount of campaigns that we're running on. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. It's obviously got an engaged and dedicated audience. It's well known for that. It's got passionate clusters of audiences within different subreddits and everything like that. So the community aspect is massive. As well as cost effective. So it has a relatively low CPM, which is cost per 1,000 people reached. So the cost of reaching people is a lot cheaper than like Twitter, for example, in most countries. And it's got a pretty unique advertising format in the way that it does blend quite well in with conversations and with the platform. But it's also got a relatively negative user perception. So Reddit users are normally sort of the ad block generation, and they don't really like to see ads put in front of them. So you've got to navigate that pretty carefully. But it has been done, and it has been done well. And it's also a relatively limited reach. So like, unlike Facebook, it's not you shouldn't put a lot of your budget towards it, but it's good to get a bit of coverage there. And on that similar vein, limited ad targeting in that sense, that the generation of ad block, the limited targeting options to sort of interest and community targeting. They are introducing things, and they have none of like engagement audiences, so retargeting video views and things like that. But yeah, it's definitely something to keep on your radar. And something that is increasingly on a lot of studios' radar is TikTok, as you can imagine, which is an interesting channel when it comes to PC studios, PC gaming studios and console alike. It is obviously the it channel at the moment in terms of users and growth and engagement, with nearly an hour average time spent per day on the app by its users. So people are there, people are engaging, makes sense to be there. It's obviously got a growing user base, so massive growth, still rising. And it's also really like a hotbed for user generated content. So users are getting really creative on this, and they're getting, stitching videos, creating their own content around other people's content, and kind of it spreads and spreads from there. So, take advantage of that, take advantage of the creativity of users and everything like that, because content is key at the end of the day. A few cons, obviously limited on ad placements, but it is full screen, so it's kind of, that sort of weighs out anyway. Potential brand safety concerns. It's relatively controversial, starting to get banned in certain countries and states, like India and Montana in the US recently. It's sort of on the verge, so it's kind of doesn't really affect our clients or the potential to advertise on there really, but it's something to be mindful of at least. And as well, similar to Twitter a little bit in terms of mobile focused. So it's good for awareness. It's good for getting sort of cheaper views and build up a community. But direct marketing, so wish lists and purchases directly from this channel, it's probably something not to invest too much in when it comes if a budget is smaller and you need to really streamline. Similar with Snapchat, really, it is a popular platform for mobile gamers. So in turn, you do have gamers on this channel. It is a younger demographic, so if your game is specifically of that younger demographic and you found that out through your audience segmentation and your research, then it could be a channel to build a community on. Relatively brand safe as well as you being able to run sequential storytelling. So if you've got like a dev diary that you want to tell in the order of that it is, you can set up campaigns that take a user through a story through sequential videos, which is really good. Some cons: relatively limited targeting options. It has improved over the past years, but when it comes to targeting, then obviously like Google, the Google, Facebooks and Twitter is more of a flexible in that sense, as well as relatively limited analytics. So it does give you a little bit of detail, but as I say, compared to other channels, it's not as insightful. And again, like TikTok and Twitter, focused on mobile, so awareness it's great, but for direct, maybe focus budget elsewhere, like on a desktop focused platform. Looking at search, this is obviously something that might get overlooked sometimes. Searches related to PC gaming have grown 32% year on year. So there is an increase in searches for gaming when it comes to even gaming laptops and accessories and things like that. So why not be a part of that audience and capture and funnel and hoover those people up to put at the top of your funnel. So yeah, it allows you to reach users using intent, highly intent users. So people are actively searching the keywords that you target. So you can hoover these people up. It's pretty measurable in terms of what you can measure in terms of direct marketing. Sorry, I've seen a question come in, and Rodolfo, thanks for sending the message. Could you show a couple of examples on how to work content for community building? For instance, in a Twitter campaign, that would be the next step of my content funnel. Yeah, I mean, we can show. So right now, I'd need to get some examples for you. So if you want to reach out and contact me as well after, I can get some specific examples of that. I mean, community building, obviously, it just there's that you could do a whole new presentation on that itself. For instance, obviously, like a Twitter campaign, you want to be able to engage, ask questions, and get as much organic engagement as possible. So as well as getting content like that will be directed by your audience research and your keyword research, because that will tell you what people are talking about. You make content based on what people are talking about, and then maybe push some paid media behind that just to get the paid exposure behind that, and then the organic reach will grow because of that. But I will, if you reach out afterwards, I can send you some examples and go into a bit more detail. So yeah, on search, as I say, it is pretty cost effective as well. So you only pay if someone actually searches and clicks on your ad. So you're paying for that direct sort of intent driven marketing, which is really useful. You don't waste money on any, if you do it well, you don't waste budget on useless sort of impressions. But some cons, obviously, with search, it's a limited creative sort of opportunity. So, it's just text with some display. You can run display campaigns with search, but it's kind of difficult to get your message across on a game with just text ads, which is why some studios stay clear of it, as well as sort of dependence on search algorithms. So the Google algorithm is changing very often, so it takes a lot to sort of keep up with that. Onto YouTube, obviously a really popular channel in gaming and with our clients and studios as well. It's kind of, it makes sense to have some sort of content on here in some capacity. So obviously there's that large and engaged audience, one of the highest used platforms for gamers. So it's scalable. You can target, it's one of the biggest search engines. So you can target by keywords, you can target by specific channels and placements, even by specific videos you can target. So you can get really in depth with your targeting. And you can utilize that Google data. So capture audiences and be really specific using your research. It is a strong sort of channel for brand awareness and visibility, as you can imagine with pre-roll, in-stream ads. You get people's attention with that. But you can also have skippable ads where some people will skip through it for 5 seconds and then obviously not pay attention to it. So it becomes quite frustrating if it's in the way of someone listening to a song or someone, deep in a YouTube hole of something. It can interrupt some people. So some people obviously have ad blockers to that. So, and as well, like search, there's high competition. So the more people that compete and that bid on a keyword, the higher it's going to cost. So you've got to be careful of what you're not bidding on specific, high competitive keywords there, which can drive costs up. And as well, ad placement. So unless you're being super precise with placement targeting, which can limit scale, you don't have full control over the content that you're placing ads on. So there have been instances where people have been placed next to or within content that's not so brand safe. If that's a worry. Display DSP, so like programmatic advertising and things like that. Display ads have a good sort of click-through rate and is used for gaming in the industry. There's around about 2.4 billion people that are exposed to display advertising programmatically. So yeah, it's somewhere that's that you have to think about, really. Partly because the targeting capabilities, you can buy third-party data, for example, like based on credit card use. So people who own a Switch, for example, people who bought a Nintendo Switch or things like that. You can use keyword targeting through AI contextual targeting, which is targeting specific keywords within web pages and put your ads next to specific content that's relevant. So you can really be flexible and creative with targeting, as well as with actual creatives. You can use 3D ads, HTML5s, animated banners, videos, It's quite impressive what sort of experimental sort of freedom you have with this DSP and display ads, as well as obviously, as I said before, a wide reach of people. So, you know, the whole internet you can try and target and choose from that. Ad fraud is a slight problem with DSPs and programmatic, like click farms and things like that. You need to use some tools for fraud protection with certain platforms, just to be aware of, and as well ad blindness. But you know, that's similar to ad fatigue, where the more creative you are and the more you might even blend in to become part of the article, in terms of like even becoming native ads, then you can get users on board. And as well with ad placement control, with programmatic, it means you don't have like exact control over the content or the websites you're being served on. So unless you use like a whitelist, you could be put next to some content that's not specifically brand safe, or you know, if it's like a kids game, for example, it might be a worry. Further on, relative to before, this is the direct buys. So obviously the programmatic is done through an ad platform and you bid CPM, CPC, stuff like that. But with direct buys, we approach publications like IGN, PC Gamer, and say, okay, can we buy X amount of impressions on your website for 25th of May, for example? How much is that going to cost? And then you have a little bit of a negotiation and stuff like that. So as an agency, that's a pro for us, that we can negotiate prices and rates and things like that. And it's obviously 100% brand safe, so you know exactly where your ads are being placed and where your game is being marketed. Some cons, there is a limited reach of that, as you are just securing, depending how big or wide your campaign is. You know, you can't just let the internet, let the programmatic platform do its thing for you. It is very, it's very, you know, it's very time consuming. So you've got to literally approach different publications and buy media from them. And as well, there's fixed pricing. So sometimes that's a pro, but most of the time that could be a con, because you know, it's difficult to optimize if one's doing well. If one campaign is doing well, then you need to like manually move money over rather than optimizing through an ad platform. So it can get, you know, it can get quite time consuming, and that can get in the way of performance. Just a few more, but we wanted to cover sort of the main platforms. So Twitch is obviously a channel that you would be considering and wanting to put forward into your media plan. It's obviously the leading platform for gaming, live streaming, and everything. So we would, you know, expect to talk about this. So as I say, a highly engaged gaming audience spends a lot of time on the platform. You do have flexibility in terms of creative formats, so like takeovers, banners, and in-stream and videos, as well as sort of competing advertising rates. So you can get a bit flexible with the pricing models, you know, cost per click buying and CPM buying, for example. And yeah, again, it's about negotiating with the Twitch, the guys over at Twitch, to be able to get good, you know, to get some good freebies, or to get some good coverage for your price. Some cons, again, ad blocking is the highest amongst Twitch users. The competition, it's getting more saturated with ads, as is a lot of channels. But again, creatively, you could cut through the noise on a specific launch if you have enough budget for that. And as well, relatively limited targeting options. So you can target through like similar games and demographics, but that's pretty much it. And you know, for some people that's enough, but if there's not enough similar games that have a high enough audience, then it doesn't really make as much sense to go through that route. And then on influencers, this is the last one in this section. We've got to talk about influencers, because obviously, you know, we run a lot of influencer campaigns with studios, and it's all about the trust and loyalty that comes with an influencer or a creator. They become a kind of beacon of truth to their followers, so they'll kind of believe what they say over what you're saying over your own product. And we know that word of mouth is one of the key drivers in purchases within the gaming community. You can access pretty niche communities, so a bit like Reddit, you can access these little pockets of communities that is really really useful, as well as provide valuable reusable content. As I said before, that content is king. You can reuse specific influencer content and everything like that. It can be expensive, so consider that when sort of pushing that forward in a media plan. You do need to assign a relatively decent amount of money towards even micro influencers, towards those that you need to do, as well as being sort of time consuming. That's kind of, that's where we step in a lot of the time to handle that all for you, as well as a bit of lack of control and a bit of lack of brand safety in terms of you might get harmed, might come and bite you in the backside if you work with a big streamer that has a big fallout or something happens later down the line. You could kind of get stuck up with that. So looking into best practices, we'll go through certain top questions we receive as a marketing agency from our clients, and hopefully help answer a few of those, or even help you at least steer you in the right direction. So we get a lot of people ask, where do we target? What regions do we target? Or at least how do we figure that out? So I refer back, the team refers back a lot to what I mentioned before, was go onto Facebook ad account, send up a dummy campaign and go into ad sets and choose a specific audience. So as I say in this example, I think is MMO, for example, use that as a targeting criteria, plug in a specific country that you might be thinking of, or that has the most, revenue or users. So obviously we know that US, Korea, UK, Germany, for example, are decent gaming communities. So plug those in and then see if this audience, see how big this audience is. So Facebook, what is included here, spits out a specific number, a range of audience size. So we've kept it pretty broad for this example, but you can get quite niche with your audience targeting, and then it gives you a little number in terms of what you can expect. So that kind of steers you in the right direction of having a big enough audience to target. And yeah, be specific as you can in that sense, but as well, you can layer audiences on top of each other to boost audiences up a bit. Another way to look at where to target is obviously diving into your own data. Your GA account through Steam, I know that they're getting rid of that from July when they bring in GA4. But at the moment, you can look at GA in terms of where your audience is coming from and what what's going to steer you in that direction. If you're popular in Germany, for example, wherever, then you can kind of steer budget towards that. And Steamworks as well, UTM links. If you use UTM links and all links and call to actions, then you can look at where traffic's coming from, and soon there will include the geo data as well, so you can be able to see the same data from GA. And as well with other companies like Steam Data Suite that I mentioned earlier, or Xsolar publisher account, you can see a breakdown of where users are coming from, which is a really useful tool to be able to then direct your marketing plan and your media plan towards that as well. Campaign duration. So another question we get is how long do we need to run campaigns for, how far in advance, and things like that. There's no exact answers, but there's a few best practices to follow that shape this. So I'll dive right in. This is a kind of a screenshot from a media plan that shows 2 different beats with different timelines as well, and different days. We won't normally start paid campaigns, so paid media campaigns, before kind of 6 months of launch. We don't want to exhaust audiences when there's nothing to really, no CTA or nothing to look forward to. So obviously if you've got wish list generation, then we can put some paid towards that. But campaigns that you want to run, they want to be at least 2 weeks, really, unless, budget constraints, but 2 weeks is probably a good length, because we see that you need to get kind of a week, maybe less, but 5 days or so of data, 4 or 5 days of data to come through, to analyze and to make optimization decisions. And then the second week, we want to make changes and we want to optimize on that. So you need to allow yourself about 2 weeks at least for campaigns. And also, like with a campaign, people don't necessarily convert to wish list or purchase straight away after seeing one ad. You need to use multiple touch points. You need to hit people with different creatives to be able to convince them. So yeah, it requires a few different iterations of an ad for one person even, which is kind of, you know, looking at setting up that funnel. You want to have at least 20 euros dollars a day on spend for each ad group or each audience target. This is kind of like a rough practice in the industry, but it's kind of just for statistical relevance. You need to be around sort of 20 euros a day or $20 a day on ad spend to get that learning, to get a sufficient amount of data to optimize. And you also, a little tip, you want to allow some activity right before launch on the build up. This can accelerate traffic to Steam. It can give you more organic exposure because it kind of lets Steam know, or stores know, that there's interest in this game coming up to launch. So maybe putting a chunk of budget towards, you know, even if it's 1 or 2 days that build up to launch, it kind of shows Steam that there's interest and it will rank you higher organically. And budget, this is kind of the golden question that we receive. How much should I spend? What do I spend? And how do I plan this? This is pretty key when presenting it to potential investors or even, you know, internally. What you know, we aim to answer some of these questions, but again, it's very niche depending on your situation and everything. So yeah, we feel free to reach out to us after this to get a bit more of a direct insight and a bit more of a bespoke conversation, but I'll go through some stuff that we normally recommend as well. First of all, you want to define your goals. What do you want to achieve? How many wish lists? What kind of traffic? How many people do you want to reach? Who even like is in your audience? How many people are even in your audience? If you're super niche, then, you know, you don't want to be spending crazy amounts of money on that. So, you know, that's what you want to figure out first. You know, data gathering, as I say, this can lead you towards a budget as well. If you're segmenting out audiences, you're doing $20 a day on each audience, you're doing a certain amount of time, certain amount of days, certain amount of channels. So you can kind of build it, work it up from there and do a rough calculation of that. Channels, like I said before, you don't want to hit too high of a frequency if your audience is small. So roughly, you know, between 5 and 20 times, I'd say maybe like 10, 15 times. You don't want to hit anything more than 15, I'd say, in terms of ad frequency. Like I said before, people aren't going to buy your game on the first bit of content they see. It might be a great piece of content, it might be a great game, but people might need a bit more convincing and they might forget. So you need to serve them a few more touch points. So allow maybe 5 to 15 times different bits of content throughout their life cycle of the funnel to be effective. As well as kind of looking at social proofing. This is kind of an exception to the $20 minimum a day rule, because with social proofing, you can put $10 or whatever towards a social post to show that there's engagement on your ads. So if before you present to a publisher or an investor, put a little bit of money towards social proofing. So boost a post that has the objective of engagement. So likes, comments, things like that, and show that your game is being talked about and being engaged with, because organic reach is deliberately shrinking through Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, for example. So you will need to put a little bit of budget towards organic post pushing to generate that engagement, to show investors, for example. And another way of looking at this, this is to be taken with a pinch of salt, obviously. But if you turn your funnel upside down, essentially, and then start at how many kind of wish lists or anything that you want, for example, in this example, we choose, for example, 50K. This is obviously a large amount, but it's just a kind of round number that we can use. If you're looking at wanting 50K wish lists, and generally speaking, you're saying there's like a 10% conversion rate from page view to then click to wish list, then you're looking at wanting to get 500,000 clicks to your page across however long the duration, across a few months, across 4 months. Then in that sense, when you're looking at 25 cents cost per click or a 2% click-through rate, then you're looking at wanting to get around about 25 million impressions. Now that sounds like a lot. It is a lot. But when you're looking at kind of a CPM of around about $5, that's a spend of around 125K. But I want to stress that we wouldn't say, oh, you need 125K for this, because this isn't including organic wish lists and that sort of uptake that you will get through organic exposure on Steam and things like that. So we're not saying 125K will get you that 50K wish list only, but it's a good way of you figuring out, okay, this is this is, or showing to an investor, okay, this is what we want to do, and this is how our funnel looks, using the benchmarks, and then saying, okay, but maybe X%, maybe 10-20% of this is going to come from organic exposure based on this paid media, and then it obviously brings the spend down. So don't think that's what you need for a spend. Some really quickly on some benchmarks, we are asked this all the time, so it's handy to have a little bit of insight. But as I say, there's so many determining factors of this, like what other games are happening at the time or released at the time, how popular your game's going to be and everything like that. But if you've got around about sort of 7K we've seen for your game on the wish list on launch, then you can get shown on that popular upcoming tab on Steam, which obviously gives you good organic reach on launch. It's not an exact science, but as I said, depends on other games at the same time. You could get success with fewer wish lists at the time as well. But if you go onto SteamDB and you search your game, you'll be able to see on the charts tab your store data widget, and that'll give you a number of basically a ranking. And obviously the higher you are, the lower the number of the ranking, the more, the sooner and the better, longer you'll be on that popular upcoming. So it's worth checking out, seeing where you stand, and then obviously putting some campaigns or a bit of a push at certain areas to look at that. Then generally speaking, really rough estimates, I'd say wishlist conversion probably has gone a little bit lower since this data was gathered, but I'd say anything between sort of 10 to 20 based on what your wish list number is that you can expect to conversion. And so if you're getting like 20 wish lists a day, for example, across maybe the year or less than a year, then you'll find that adds up for a decent sort of indie game on Steam, and generates a decent push for that launch as well. Media plan. I'm not gonna click through this and look over it because there's still a bit to cover, and I'm cautious to spend too much time. But this again is linked through to a media plan document that we've created as a little bit of a template for you, or an insight. So you'll be able to go in yourself and have a little look and a browse around of what a media plan looks like and how it's presented. This basically shows, obviously spend, different beats, different channels, different budgets and things and dates there. So this is a key part of presenting a media plan, a media marketing plan. And if you're looking at getting an investor, it shows that you kind of know what your plan is and that you've thought about it, obviously. So lastly, I wanted to talk about measurement and about attribution. I'm just going to take a drink. So it's important to plan out your activities, obviously, but it's kind of more important to be able to measure and to track how everything is going. So this is something we focus heavily on at Theorycraft Marketing, is striving for accountability. So on every marketing dollar spent, or every marketing pound spent. So we want to look at measurement first. So I'll take you through sort of 3 key ways of measuring those campaigns, or at least showing that you can measure those campaigns. And obviously it provides insights into the performance of your campaigns, allows you to optimize your campaigns, improve ROI, and obviously make data-driven decisions based on your marketing. Because you may have a marketing plan, you may have a media plan, but once you can measure, once you can track, then that might change halfway through and say, okay, actually, we're getting a really good performance from Instagram or Twitter. Then, let's put money towards that. So performance can come when you don't expect it sometimes. So it's important to stay flexible and dynamic with this. So the first way, as I said before, Steamworks UTM links. You can add tracking parameters to your landing page on Steam. Specifically, there's an example here, for example. Then you can kind of tell what traffic sources that is converting to wish lists and installs. This isn't perfect. There's a lot of tracked visits that get dropped off of this, but if you're not using it already, I would recommend adding these to all, to links that you're putting forward with the CTA on your content. There always needs to be, if you've got something, there always needs to be a CTA on your content. So then you can do exactly this and measure, this piece of content converted really well in terms of wish lists. Let's make more of that. So showing that you can use your UTM links is really important here. They will be introducing, as I said before, geo reporting in the coming months as well. The second option, obviously, is these aren't just one or the other. You can use them all if you want. Is landing page. So having your own landing page in your website and putting pixels on, so Facebook pixel, Google pixel, and events specifically on that website. So even a click to store, putting tags on buttons to capture and send postbacks to Facebook or Google or Twitter, for example, gives you full flexibility of data gathering, allows you to build audiences, and allows you to measure how they're acting on your page as well. You can adds another step to the funnel. So instead of sending people straight to Steam page or your store page, it sends people to your landing page and then click out the store page. So sometimes we've tested before and it's obviously not been as effective in terms of on launch, but in build up to launch, it kind of doesn't do any harm sometimes directing to there to gain a bit of data for some retargeting audiences and things like that. And lastly on this, some external tools. I mentioned we partnered with Steam Data Suite. We've also partnered up with GameSite that you might have heard of, that allows you to implement like kind of a small bit of code into your game, and it allows for full funnel tracking. So these captures sort of fingerprint data from ad click, again using specific tracking links. User clicks on your ad, then they go into Steam, download your game, and then once they launch the game, it'll fire back a post back to that channel, whether it be Facebook or Google or whatever. It'll fire a post back to that and tell that channel what the user looks like. And so it allows you to optimize for those users. So this is a really good way of, first of all, attributing ads, so looking at what's performing well in more of an in-depth way, but also optimizing and making changes to your campaigns. And it's probably the most transparent and useful way of moving forward with your marketing. And it's not as pricey as you think. It's very much dependent on your volume and things like that. So you can sort of try it for a small amount of money. We obviously have discounted rates through us because we've got a good partnership with these guys. So yeah, get in touch if you want to find more, and I'll put you in contact and talk about it. And it's a really good way of us to be able to measure our marketing and be held accountable. So finally, I wanted to just go through some takeaways that I've highlighted that are important and that we should be, focused on. And I know that there's been a lot of information given to you, so I just wanted to highlight a few important things. So probably the most important thing is to know your audience. So everything else kind of follows on from there. So your channels, your tactics, your messaging, it follows on from your audience segments. Once you find your audience, then figure out where you're going to get them and figure out how much money you can put towards it. And then it kind of goes from there. So show in a pitch deck, internal deck, whatever, show that you know where your audience is and what they're like. Utilize tools, whether it's free, paid. There's plenty of free tools out there. Look at external data that gives valuable insight and everything like that. Think about your objectives first as well. You choose your ad channels based on your audience, but based on your objectives as well. If you, as I say before, awareness objectives, then cheaper CPMs. So like something like a TikTok, something like a Reddit obviously is a good awareness tool, or a Twitter. But if you want direct call to action through to the Steam page on desktop, then obviously like a YouTube or a Facebook or a direct display DSP, for example, is really good to capture that desktop inventory. And yeah, don't be afraid to capture your own data and utilize that, or don't forget about it as well, because it'll end up being the most valuable in the long run. And the sooner you start collecting data, the sooner you can, or the sooner you will get insight into your audiences. And yeah, show exactly how you're going to work out what your results are, how you're going to measure. Show potential investors you're not just putting your finger in the air and guessing what's going to work, that you've really thought about how you're tracking, how you're looking at performance and everything like that. So yeah, those are pretty key points that we would recommend. Yeah, so thanks for staying with me for the hour or so. I really appreciate it. And just wanted to finish off, obviously, with a list of tools that I've mentioned within this deck. You know, either take a screenshot or as I say, I will send out the deck, put it on our website, or maybe try and find a way that we can send it out. But yeah, feel free to get in contact with me or the team through the website. There's lots of different avenues. If you just visit theorycraftmarketing.com, there'll be lots of stuff on there. Reach me out on Discord, LinkedIn, and yeah, we can get a chat if you need help with your media plan consultation. Work together on getting a media plan for you to present to an investor, or even to work on yourselves. And we're here, and we love working with indie studios to be able to get your game seen, because that's a really important, really important aspect. So we love to see good games be put in front of the right audiences. So again, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and engagement, and yeah, and your questions. And yeah, get in touch and have a great rest of your day. And yeah, I appreciate it.